We'll get you started. Sean O'Brien, Saul Malka, and Sean Rusing. We have Grixis Tezzeret versus Elves and Legacy. If you aren't familiar with Saul, he is a black-green mage through and through, one of the innovators of the archetype, which says a lot.
Saul the Rock Malka.
Says a lot to say that, like yeah, this person innovated black-green. You think, is that a thing? Hasn't black-green always been around?
He was the person that said you can play these two colors of the five colors of the game together.
Well, if you go back to early Magic, mid-range, the word mid-range used to just kind of be an insult for a deck. In early Magic, you know, there was, you either played Control or Savannah Lions, and anything that was mid-range was bad.
Right.
The formats, when everybody has all the removal is amazing in 1 mana, I don't know, why would you pay 4 mana for a threat? You should pay 1 or not play 1.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so we have in the middle seat is going to be black-green mid-range versus Lantern Control. And once again, another team for mono-red aggro. It's going to be a very popular deck choice this weekend.
Yeah, it's been all over Magic Online. Not surprising to see it out here.
But nice, here you go. Deathrite Shaman, the start for Maxwell's Elves deck. Mox Diamond. If I was in the Elves player, I'd always be worried, oh man, am I playing against lands?
Yeah, Tabernacle can be pretty good against the Elves deck.
But then he just starts creeping Tar Pit, and I was like, oh, something else is up.
That shows up, that used to show up in lands.
Yeah. This is an old school team. Maybe he's just playing lands. It's going to Nantuko Monastery. Now, Chalice of the Void on 1, though. That's the turn 1 play from Sean. We were talking about how this was the most important thing for the Grixis player.
Yep, now this turns off a lot of what Justin can actually do in the game. He's going to be trying to find that main deck Reclamation Sage.
Yeah, his deck, I mean, the only castable cards here are Elvish Visionary, Green Sun Zenith, and Natural Order. And the 1 Reclamation Sage.
And Craterhoof Behemoth.
It's not castable.
You usually don't see that one hard cast. Certainly not when you have to fight through Chalice on 1.
Justin attacks with the Deathrite Shaman. I don't believe he played a land.
No, just a basic forest off that wooded foothills on turn 1.
So, and if on turn 2 he's attacking, see Sean's gonna go for Ensnaring Bridge. What that sounds to me like is that his hand, because he kept to 7.
Yeah, it's all 1s.
It's probably a glimpse hand, where he was looking to glimpse and to attempt to have a big turn, which, if that's the case, Chalice is just having none of that.
Looks like he has a Cradle hanging out in the mix. He just doesn't want to expose that, as Sean did play Wasteland as the land that initially cast the Chalice.
So he'll keep hitting with Deathrite Shaman. It is interesting. I liked what you're saying where this deck is actually a lot closer to mono-red Sneak Attack.
Yeah, it doesn't play like any of the other blue decks in the format. So the similarities with mono-red Sneak Attack, they start and stop on lock pieces. You have these artifacts you're trying to power out quickly. For this deck is Chalice of the Void and Ensnaring Bridge. But then the closing game is casting a bunch of Planeswalkers. You're trying to use Tezzeret, Agent of Bolas. You're trying, this build plays Dak Faden just to generate value over multiple turns and close games that way.
Second Ensnaring Bridge for Sean O'Brien.
And with only 1, I suppose now you need to set up Reclamation Sage plus one of your creatures that picks it up, your Wirewood Symbiote. You also need to do that before O'Brien starts killing you, which he hasn't presented a way that does that just yet.
All right, so he's demonstrated his lock. We do see Elvish Visionary for Maxwell. How does Sean win?
Largely these 4 copies of Tezzeret, Agent of Bolas. There's also Thopter Sword combo featured in there. That's Sword of the Meek and Thopter Foundry.
Now there's some cards in here I'm interested in, so I'm just going to kind of rattle them off here. Trading Post, Transmute Artifact, Dak Faden. Are any of these ways? Yeah, Trading Post. Okay, is that part of a lock? Is that just a value engine?
I don't know of a lock that's a part of.
Okay,
it helps you rebuy your Thopter Sword combo when you get part in the graveyard. The Transmute Artifact also very good for assembling that, or if you're missing a Ensnaring Bridge, it's a tutor for that. A transmute artifact, just more copies of the artifacts that you're playing.
Another Chalice of the Void on 1 from Sean. There's no reason to put it on anything other than 1. Right? You could try to put it on 3 for Reclamation Sage, but then he'll just Green Sun Zenith for it.
Yeah. There's more Green Sun Zenith than there is Reclamation Sage itself, but Zenith, if you just get more mana, you can X for more. It's just X or less.
Okay, so you can you can overpay.
Right.
So there's no way to really ever stop Zenith for Reclamation Sage.
If you get a Chalice on 4, you do force them to Sun for 5, and you turn off Natural Order. Not that Natural Order for Reclamation Sage is necessarily a winning line.
Heritage Druid. I like how Sean taps both Chalice of the Voids.
Justin does play 1 Cavern of Souls. In Modern, the Elves decks, they go very heavy on Cavern. Because this is a Gaia's Cradle deck, because you need green mana on turn 1, don't see too many copies of that in the Legacy build.
It looks like Sean has multiple copies of Transmute Artifact. He's actually just looking for the 2nd blue mana. He also has Dak Faden in hand, so just can't...
Mox Diamond's good, but it doesn't fix more than 1 colored mana. And it's still full up on hand, so these 2 creatures can attack in the face of these ensnaring bridges.
You know, the Transmute Artifacts, that makes the 2nd Chalice make even more sense here. If you think about trying to get Thopter Sword.
Yeah, you can transmute that 1 away.
All right, so this clearly says what it does. What actually, okay, I'm just gonna paraphrase here. Blue sorcery, you sacrifice an artifact to get an artifact, and then you have to pay the difference.
Yes. So you can sacrifice Chalice, which is just a 0 on the battlefield. Pay 2, find part of your Thopter Sword.
Dimir Signet from Sean will be a 2nd blue source. Now, there's some weird stuff about when you pay the mana and CMCs, and it's not going to matter here. So a lot of these old cards, when you have to fit them into the modern rules, have strange interactions. So basically, with that Mox Diamond and Dimir Signet and the Wasteland mana, he could transmute, so we'll follow with what he's doing here. He has double blue if he needs it.
Yes.
Can pay up to 5 mana, so he could sacrifice any of these artifacts and go get one that costs up to 3 more than the one he sacrifices.
And one thing about the deck, the actual closing spells, they're all the Planeswalkers. You can't transmute for them. The things you can transmute for going to be your lock pieces, you know, your Ensnaring Bridge. If you want the Chalice on 0, you can get that one too. But it's going to be Thopter Sword, or you could find Baleful Strix. This is not a situation where he's going to find Baleful Strix.
Well, Thopter Sword is a win con. He could also just play this Dak Faden in his hand.
Yep, that one's just fine. It helps you, you know, it gets a card out of your hand by casting it the same way the transmutes would. You can try to find blue mana.
So here is Transmute Artifact. And unlike Tinker, I believe he sacrifices on Resolute, whatever. It doesn't matter his opponent's playing green. We'll sacrifice Ensnaring Bridge, and it looks like he paid 1, so he can get something that costs up to 4. And yeah, he could get a 3 or a 4. He doesn't have to choose until he's resolving it. That looked like, yeah, so he was looking at Sword of the Meek. He was looking at Trading Post for a second. Sword of the Meek. Doesn't have to pay any of the extra mana for that one.
Transmute, or I suppose Tinker must have been printed because not enough people were playing Transmute Artifact. This is a fun ability. We want to have more of this.
After this, we determined, you know, that turning artifacts into different artifacts was a blue ability, so might as well. All right, so the extra mana doesn't do anything. Sean made extra mana here because when he was searching, he wasn't entirely certain what he wanted. And once he's picked up the deck, he can't pay extra mana, so you have to float it ahead of time.
Right, you're in the middle of the resolution of your spell there.
You can't, right.
And given that Sean just had 2 transmutes, he had extra pieces of both Chalice and the Snaring Bridge, it makes sense to just start using both of them to find half of the Thopter Sword combo, especially given that his deck just doesn't really pay other payoffs.
Yeah.
Trading Post it's a card. It's a card his deck is happy to have, but it doesn't really do much before you're set up.
Well, and I love how you can transmute Sword of the Meek for Thopter Foundry. Puts the sword in the graveyard, gets Thopter Foundry. It's a nice interaction, so getting sword first makes sense. It does really telegraph the second transmute.
Right. Not getting the Sword of the Meek to equip to any honest creatures.
I don't know if I've ever seen that happen.
I've used Stoneforge Mystic to tutor for Sword of the Meek. Extended was a great format, and I miss it dearly. Didn't equip the Sword of the Meek to the Stoneforge Mystic. That's not what I was doing.
Then you comboed it with Thopter Foundry.
Yeah.
Another transmute artifact. There we go. So Sword of the Meek is going to turn into Thopter Foundry. 1 mana's floating. In order to get that double blue, Sean has to float a black mana. No way around that one.
Yep. And that mana can immediately be used to sacrifice something, get back Sword of the Meek, make a Thopter. Start sacrificing the sword again and again to the Thopter Foundry, gaining a life and making a Thopter token, a 1/1 flying Thopter every time. Don't see this combo too much anymore. This used to be a very popular combination in the extended format.
Yeah, and it was popular enough that actually Sword of the Meek was banned for most of the time in Modern. It was unbanned just at the same banning where they banned Eldrazi, they unbanned Sword of the Meek.
Yeah, and you still don't see it in Modern.
Right. It turned out to be one of the safe unbannings.
Yep. Yeah, so Sword of the Meek, when it's in your graveyard, if a 1/1 creature enters the battlefield under your control, you can return Sword of the Meek from your graveyard to the battlefield, equipped to that creature. The equip part doesn't really matter for this combo, but it's part of the text box. You can then use Thopter Foundry to sacrifice an artifact. That's going to be your Sword of the Meek, and then that'll go to the graveyard. You'll make a 1/1 Thopter, blue Thopter with flying, gain a life. That'll trigger your Sword of the Meek again. For every 1 mana you spend, you gain a life, you get a Thopter.
Yeah, that's right. So that's the net result, right? You just have 1 mana turns into a life into Thopter.
Yep.
So it's not a combo in the sense where it just immediately wins, but it's an amount of efficiency and value that just is very difficult to overcome.
If your opponent is not killing you with some spell-based combo and you have a decent amount of life when you start, it should win the game eventually.
Justin, not finding Reclamation Sage. He has Natural Order. He's been 1 land away a bit here from trying for Gaia's Cradle, Natural Order for Reclamation Sage. There's actually, could have done it if there were, except for the fact that there are no lands in graveyards for his Deathrite Shaman.
There's a City of Traders there in Sean's graveyard.
Oh, there's a city there. So he could go for that play. I'm not sure what it gets him.
I really like that Sean did not sacrifice one of his chalices to start his Thopter Foundry train, even being attacked for 1. This way, 1 Reclamation Sage isn't really going to do it against the chalices.
And he uses Baleful Strix from hand to bring back sort of the Meek into play. So now the combo's working. You see he's lined up 4 mana on Justin's end step.
And these will close the game in pretty short order. You assemble a bunch of flying creatures, you're gaining life, and then you get to attack for a bunch in the air. So over a couple turns, this should actually officially end the game. Right now, it's all but over, but it's just a matter of actually reaching the conclusion.
Yeah, consulting here. Maxwell has just chucked spells into the Chalice of the Void most of the game.
Yeah, that's really all you can do with a fistful of 1s against a Chalice.
Yeah. And it might be a Game 1 clean sweep here for the team of O'Brien, Malka, and Rusing. Saul actually wins Game 1 over Lantern Control. A result which I was not expecting. Generally, Lantern plays nicely against the black-green X decks, but Saul's not your average pilot of those decks.
No.
And Sean Rusing Mono red aggro, winning game 1 over Teamer Delirium and Ryan Steiner. So Maxwell just says go. On end step, Sean can pay 4. Make 4 1/1s, gain 4 life. He has to pay 2 life to do it because he's using Ancient Tomb, but that's
just fine.
That's fine. You know, I still... Judd, so what happened here, instead of picking up the tokens box, he accidentally picked up his deck. So Judge has him re-randomized and a warning's issued.
Yeah.
I was always excited to see Sword of the Meek unbanned. I had a stack of blue Thopters. Just telling us wait, they were waiting. And then then it turned out to not see much play in Modern, and I was
I
let
messed
down.
around with some deck lists. It was clear pretty quickly that it just uses too much space and loses to too many things.
And Primeval Titan happened, and that was cooler. Swing in the air. All the creatures.
That is the nice thing about this combination in Legacy. O'Brien just playing 1 copy of each combo piece, the transmute artifacts serving as additional copies, so he doesn't have to throw a ton of space as the combo. It just kind of exists in his deck.
Yeah. And this is the only deck that we see play this combo in Legacy.
As far as I know. Over the years, there's been a few others. You know, there's some Enlightened Tutors decks.
Yeah. Well, the life gain, I think one of the differences when you talk about this deck in Extended, when you look at like the heavy hitters when Dark Depths Thopter was around in Extended, tapping X mana to gain X life every turn was actually a very good defense against most of the format. You know, Wild Nicatl Zoo was very good in that format. So hey, if I'm gaining 6 and making 6 1/1s a turn, you just try to attack me. See how that works.
It was also featured in a deck that made turn 2 2020s.
Yeah, I mean, fair. Even without the 2020, sometimes you'd see decks before they were hybridized. Thopter was a thing on its own.
Sure.
And that's going to be the sweep. Sean wins there. I think why we don't see as much of it, and tell me if this seems off base, is that, like I said, in a cattle format, making 5 1/1s and gaining 5 life is pretty game-ending. In Legacy, a lot of the decks, the proactive decks, can still win when you do that. You know, say if I'm playing, Storm, I don't think I care.
Nope, unless it's Thopter Foundry being pitched to force
No.
a will, you're pretty okay with what's
If I'm
happening.
playing lands or Death and Taxes even to a point, like, I don't know how much I care.
Yep. It's got a lot of bad spots, that is for sure.
Yeah, and even Modern to a point. There are some decks to be great against. I'm not sure Affinity, for example, is going to beat an online Thopter Sword very easily.
The setup time and the closing speed are a real concern as well.
Right, yeah, at least in Modern, there's some decks where it wins against.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to go to the sideboarded games here. O'Brien up a game with that combo.
Right, so okay, let's look at Justin's side. We actually, when talking about the matchup, you had said that Elves thinks kind of a favorite here. And I said, yeah, I agree, except with turn 1 Chalice of the Voids. Okay, I think Justin knows that too. So looking at a sideboard, Abrupt Decays, a full playset, Thoughtseize, Surgical Extraction, Cabal Therapy, Scavenging Ooze. I could see arguments for a ton of these cards.
Yes, this is a matchup. The Tezzeret deck does fold to a very small amount of disruption. A turn 1 Thoughtseize can turn their entire hand off. Abrupt Decay to take care of Chalice and or Bridge, you know, whichever is giving you grief at the time. Cabal Therapy along those lines as well. A turn 1 Cabal Therapy in the Dark Naming Chalice is going to be a pretty good play in this matchup. Then you can bring in some of the Graveyard Hate elements if you want them to turn off the Thopter Sword combo. I don't think that that's necessary.
Yeah.
There's a better argument for Scavenging Ooze over a Surgical just because it's tutorable.
Well, it's actually really hard to use Graveyard Hate against Thopter Sword if the pilot knows it's coming.
If you just have some mana up, you can sacrifice multiple artifacts, just get that sword back again and again.
Yes, I do like Abrupt Decay and Thoughtseize, and I think Cabal Therapy. Let's just make sure this Chalice doesn't work.
Yep, all that seems great.
And on Sean's side, he has some hate cards of his own. You can tell he doesn't like this matchup either. 4 Leyline of the Voids, 2 Massacre, and then a bunch of one-ofs. Maybe pick through some of the ones that are going to be good here.
So Pyroclasm is the big pickup here. Unfortunately, Massacre is only free off of basic planes. Casting that for 4 mana is a little bit ambitious. So largely we are leaning on the Pyroclasm here.
Yeah, so he's switched to Clasms, Massacres from Clasms as a nod to Death and Taxes, but that's going to hurt him here.
Yep, and this is a matchup where Chalice will win him more games than it would against a deck like Death and Taxes, so it makes sense to skew that way. But, you know, he's up a game. This matchup seems reasonable if he sets up lock pieces quickly.
Now, he has an alternate win con in Helm of Obedience. That combos with the Leyline of the Void, but they're both in his sideboard.
Yeah, so you can consider this as one of two things. Either you just bring in the Helm whenever your opponent has graveyard stuff, and that way you have your hate card, and then you have an easy win to convert with your 2-card combo. Or you can view this as a transformational sideboard in long shots. If you think that you're very poorly matched up against your opponents, you just try to cheese them with a turn 1 Leyline, or turn 0 Leyline rather, and then a fast Helm of Obedience just to try to steal games.
Well, this does sound like a bad matchup. Is he enough of a long shot?
I don't think this is a bad matchup. This is not a blue. The blue decks are the bad matchups for this deck.
Oh, okay.
I think
This is a
any
fine
matchup
matchup
where Chalice is live, I don't think you have to throw any Hail Marys.
Okay. Makes sense to me. Game 2 is across the board starting soon. So this is our first team open here on Season 2 of the SCG Tour, but not our only team open. You see, we started the season 3 weeks ago at the Season 1 Invitational in Roanoke. Last week, you and I covered the Cincinnati Open, where we had Michael Hamilton winning with 5-color control. We're here in Atlanta for the first team open. Next week, we're going to be taking a break, and then we launch into some modern tournaments in August and September. We'll be in Syracuse, New York in August 5th. Then we'll be in Richmond, Virginia, and Louisville, Kentucky. End of the September, we go back for some standard. That's going to be in Dallas, playing modern in Charlotte. These are the October events. Another Modern Open in Cincinnati, and we finish October with our Legacy event of the season. That's the Legacy Open Washington, D.C. Now on October 28th and 29th. We'll have our regional championships, and then ending the season with our second team open of the season. That's going to be November 18th and 19th in Baltimore. And then we have our second invitational at the beginning of December.
A lot more standard, modern, and legacy to be played throughout the season. All 3 formats featured today, of course.
Yeah, we also give away exclusive playmats at the events all season long. These are going to be in the Invocation artworks on playmats. So we have
Bantu the Glorified.
So Bantu the Glorified, giving away for our standard opens and classics. It is going to be Spell Pierce for modern opens and classics, and for Legacy, and this is probably my favorite art here, it's the playmat Days.
This is really nice art. Yeah, all these playmats are just gorgeous.
Yeah, so these are free with entry to any Season 2 open or classic, and they're available now.
We got players looking at some opening hands here, and yeah, we are underway. Maxwell, of course, on the play, losing game 1. This time, basic forest, no fetch land, but Deathrite Shaman all the same.
Last game, he had this on turn 1, and then got hit by a Chalice of the Void. See if Sean can do it again. This looks real similar. Mox Diamond, discarding Wasteland. Is he gonna? Doesn't happen again. Let's see. Yes. Yes, it is.
Whammy.
Exactly. Is Justin any better position this time? Does he have Abrupt Decay?
Yeah, post sideboard, he does get access to more answers.
Looks like his hand is a stack of 1s, actually all 1-mana cards. Wirewood Symbiote, Quirion Ranger, Nettle Sentinel, Glimpse of Nature, and Dryad Arbor.
Yeah, it looks like got the Dryad Arbor, so he's on the beatdown plan, but that's all he's got going for him.
Seems we've been here before. See what Sean's closing speed is. We did not see Tezzeret last game. That's the fastest way to end things.
Right.
Dimir Signet and a pass. Another land from Justin. So he has enough mana that if he draws Natural Order or Green Sun Zenith, those are online. Also, this is a black mana source for a possible Abrupt Decay.
Yep. Or if he expects that Sean's going to do nothing. Let's see, do we have a second Dryad Arbor? Yep, 2 Dryad Arbors in the list. This could add another creature to the clock.
Sure, I mean, these chip shots are unlikely to add up.
Though bad news, O'Brien has picked up Tezzeret Agent of Bolus, so might be able to close this one very quickly.
Sure. He has to be careful. If he plays it and, say, makes the Chalice into a 5/5, the Tezzeret actually can be attacked down. So.
Yeah, playing it and plussing it is pretty safe.
Even minusing it and no attacks with the Chalice is good.
That's also fine. It's really a nightmare scenario if Justin has Abrupt Decay then, though.
Yeah. I mean, if Justin has Abrupt Decay, he has to be concerned about end step Abrupt Decay, the Chalice, untap, kill you.
Sure, yeah. There's a few lands in play here. Glimpse of Nature, Gaia's Cradle can do it from as little as what's already happening.
Ensnaring Bridge is the play for Sean. You know, that's a safe, if you want to play around end step Decay, untap, win, Ensnaring Bridge is actually the way to do it.
Yeah, then you need to kill both of those things to realistically go off.
Which the Elves deck can, but it needs to have a full combo draw.
Yeah.
A lot of times Elves combo is +7 cards, +6. It can draw its whole deck in a turn, but not as frequently.
From a position of having to start on Reclamation Sage, it's really tough.
Yeah. Second Dryad Arbor is the find here for Justin. He plays 2.
Going for the beatdowns. Yeah,
Sure.
he does have access to Black Mana already because of the Deathrite Shaman. There's
What?
a land in both graveyards.
The beatdown plan might matter here. Say if his hand is just Gaia's Cradle, Craterhoof Behemoth, he's pretty close.
Have to kill the bridge to pull that one off.
Depends how many cards.
How many cards in hand? 14? All right.
He did pick up Green Sun Zenith. That's live.
Yeah, that can find the Sage.
And that's what's going to do. Zenith for 3 is the play.
Gotta figure this one's going after the Chalice.
Oh, yeah. I'm not sure. I think Sean might have another Chalice in hand. Yeah, I mean, he has Wirewood Symbiote in hand, so if he gets the Chalice off the board...
If he has another land and can commit Symbiote
yes,
straight
that's
away.
what he'd love to do. And pick up the Reclamation Sage. And he's going to need to. So, Modern is finished. Saul Malka is a 2-0 winner with his black-green mid-range deck. So, at 4 games on their side, the team of Maxwell, Logan, and Steiner cannot afford to drop any more. And here is Chalice of the Void on 1. And you mentioned that land miss for Justin means he doesn't have a defense against this.
Going to need to find one of those sideboard Abrupt Decays.
Yeah, draws Gaia's Cradle. That doesn't do much here, but he can attack, and he's starting to attack for real numbers. Here's 5.
Yeah, O'Brien's going to need to empty his hand pretty quick here.
And some help from his teammate over in the standard match. Ryan Steiner wins game 2 to force game 3 against Sean Rusing.
One thing that is nice about the composition of the Tezzeret deck, it's very heavy on permanents. Not much in the way of instants and sorceries here. In fact, a very small number. So it's tough to use Deathrite Shaman to actually drain this deck. Justin will have to find a bunch of his own glimpses and what have you to get into his own graveyard to activate the Deathrite Shaman and make him lose life.
Sure, and oh my, Toxic Deluge, the play from Sean. That's a 1/2 of in his main. He paid 2 life to give all creatures -2/-2. That's most of Justin's lands.
Not bad. Yeah, and that's the other thing. The small number of instant and sorceries, some of them kill all your creatures.
So there's only 1 Reclamation Sage in Justin's list, and now that it's in the graveyard, there's no creature-based way to remove Chalice of the Void.
Gotta find those Abrupt Decays fast.
And fast indeed. Tezzeret Agent of Bolus, the play.
Tough to attack with those 5/5s when you bridge, so yeah, plussing makes sense here.
Right, he can win with the -4. If he gets enough artifacts in play. It drains life points equal to double the number of artifacts that Sean has in play. And that'll be just fine. So the +1 ability, he looks at the top 5 cards. He can pick an artifact among them and put it in his hand. He'll take Sword of the Meek.
Yeah, you and I played this card in Block Constructed.
Yeah, it was the Block Pro Tour.
Spine of Ishsaw.
Nice.
You won't see that one here, though.
Play a bunch of Wellsprings. I don't know, Block Constructed is a great... You get to play some cards that aren't good in any other format.
And Tezzeret.
And Tezzeret. He was good. Consecrated Sphinx was good, too.
Yes. That's still a very messed up cube, and I assume commander card.
Oh, yeah. One of the top cards in Commander.
Yeah, it won't take too long for the Tezzeret to close the game. You see 4 artifacts already on the battlefield for O'Brien. Yeah, get up to 9, and it's lethal against the opponent on 18. Could also just draw some cards, make 5/5s when he has 5 cards in hand, and attack for 5.
Oh, yeah, he might actually just build up to enough cards in hand that they can attack.
Yeah, it looks like he does have 5 currently.
Okay.
Looking at casting spells, though.
Sure. That was plus. Drawing cards is too much fun.
He has plenty of time to -4 the Tezzeret multiple times as well.
Trinisphere is in the top 5, so show that.
One of the most fun Magic cards ever printed.
Yeah, I mean, Justin doesn't have 3 mana-producing lands right now, so Trinisphere seems solid.
Doesn't make a huge difference given the Chalice, but, you know, makes things tougher.
And remember, they have to play this one out because they need this win. And that's going to be hard. Here's Trinisphere from Sean O'Brien. Artifact number 5. He needs 3 more.
Relevant pickup here for Justin. Cavern of Souls.
Oh, wow. So Cavern of Souls, when set to Elf, actually allows Justin to cast Elves into Chalice of the Void.
Gotta say, though, the Trinisphere is looking really nice.
Yeah, that...
I guess because your other 1-drops get countered anyway, it doesn't really make any difference.
Yeah, you're still in 1 spell a turn. Here's Deathrite Shaman. I mean, he still needs to draw Abrupt Decay.
Right. This will allow him to cast some creatures while he tries to find it.
Yeah, and you know, this is just going to keep getting harder. You see Engineered Explosives a pickup.
The question is, can Sean cast that for 1? Yeah, it looks like, he can make it for 3 blue mana.
Yeah, sometimes that can be difficult because he has to use 3 mana on it.
Trinisphere and Sunburst, fun interaction. Same thing with things like Sphere of Resistance. The extra mana invested counts as colors spent on the spell.
Right.
But yeah, an abundance of blue mana here. If he does something like tap the Signet and not use one of the lands, that automatically means he's pumping in 2 colors of mana, though. It looks like Colligan's Command. This guy is looking at casting here. That one out of the sideboard. It is a removal spell.
Sure. I mean, it'll deal with Deathrite Shaman. And make Justin discard. Yeah, he's still closing out nicely here. Tezzeret, and now it's going to start turning cards into 5/5s. And yeah, there's 5 cards in Sean's hand. Why not?
Something pretty delightful about attacking with a 5/5 ensnaring bridge.
Here we go. That is, yeah, I like that. That's a play. You don't see that very often. Deals 5, Justin's down to 13.
If he wants to cast a bunch of spells on the following turn, a neat trick is animating Trinisphere with Tezzeret because it only works when it's untapped. So if you attack with the Trinisphere, then you can start casting spells.
I'm not sure you want to do that because that means Justin would get to cast
He can
spells.
only cast one anyway. He's on Cavern. So here from 13, let's do an artifact count. 5 currently. Tezzeret's still at 4. That's good for 10.
It's got a block.
Yep. Explosives, crack explosives, attack -4. Tezzeret looks lethal to me. You have to have one more mana though.
All right, he's just going to make the Chalice into a 5/5. Makes sense. They both swing. And looks like Justin takes the hit. He goes to 3.
Yeah. Now the Tezzeret is off 4. That doesn't just kill him immediately, and he's not winning by chump blocking. He has to find Abrupt Decay and just go off.
Yeah, the issue is he basically needs 2 Abrupt Decays to go off through this board. He needs to answer the Trinisphere and the Chalice of the Void.
Right.
And if he spends his mana doing that, then he's done.
Yeah, and it was definitely correct for Sean to make the Chalice a 5/5, not the Trinisphere.
Yeah. He makes the Trinisphere a 5/5. He could lose to 1 Abrupt Decay.
Right. Well, it's like a backup bridge here. Or a backup Chalice, his pick.
And to make another Chalice of the Void on 1. And the last draw here is a Forest. That's not going to be enough.
Far from it. Let's run out some chump blockers there.
Yeah, Tezzeret can make the other Chalice into a 5/5. All 3 swing, and that should do it. Shows, yes, 6 cards in hand, so no problems with the Ensnaring Bridge.
Still more than 5, huh?
Still good. And here's a swing for lethal. So the game was over, and that is going to be the round for the team of O'Brien, Malka, and Roosing. So they continue with their wins in a pretty dominant round there, just dropping 1 game.
Yep. Couple 2-0 wins on